Section 10 of Confessions, volumes 3 and 4. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Martin Geeson. Confessions, volumes 3 and 4, by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Anonymously translated. Section 10. Volume 4. Let anyone judge my surprise and grief at not finding her on my arrival. I now felt regret at having abandoned Monsieur le Maître, and my uneasiness increased when I learned the misfortunes that had befallen him. His box of music, containing all his fortune, that precious box, preserved with so much care and fatigue, had been seized on at Lyons by means of Count d'Ortan, who had received information from the chapter of our having absconded with it. In vain did Le Maître reclaim his property, his means of existence, the labor of his life. His right to the music in question was at least subject to litigation, but even that liberty was not allowed him, the affair being instantly decided on the principle of superior strength. Thus poor Le Maître lost the fruit of his talents, the labor of his youth, and principal dependence for the support of old age. Nothing was wanting to render the news I had received truly afflicting, but I was at an age when even the greatest calamities are to be sustained. Accordingly, I soon found consolation. I expected shortly to hear news of Madame de Warrens, though I was ignorant of the address and she knew nothing of my return. As to my desertion of Le Maître, all things considered, I did not find it so very culpable. I had been serviceable to him at his retreat. It was not in my power to give him any further assistance. Had I remained with him in France, it would not have cured his complaint. I could not have saved his music, and should only have doubled his expense. In this point of view I then saw my conduct. I see it otherwise now. It frequently happens that a villainous action does not torment us at the instant we commit it, but on recollection, and sometimes even after a number of years have elapsed, for the remembrance of crimes is not to be extinguished. The only means I had to obtain news of Madame de Warrens was to remain at Annecy. Where should I seek her in Paris? Or how bear the expense of such a journey? Sooner or later, there was no place where I could be so certain to hear of her as that I was now at. This consideration determined me to remain there, though my conduct was very indifferent. I did not go to the bishop, who had already befriended me, and might continue to do so. My patroness was not present, and I feared his reprimands on the subject of our flight. Neither did I go to the seminary, M. Gras was no longer there. In short, I went to none of my acquaintances. I should gladly have visited the intendant's lady, but did not dare. I did worse, I sought out M. Venture, whom, notwithstanding my enthusiasm, I had never thought of since my departure. I found him quite gay, in high spirits, and the universal favorite of the ladies of Annecy. This success completed my infatuation. I saw nothing but Monsieur Venture. He almost made me forget even Madame de Warrens. That I might profit more at ease by his instructions and example, I proposed to share his lodgings, to which he readily consented. It was at a shoemaker's, a pleasant, jovial fellow, who in his country dialect called his wife nothing but Trallop, an appellation which she certainly merited. Venture took care to augment their differences, though under an appearance of doing the direct contrary, throwing out in a distant manner and provincial accents hints that produced the utmost effect, and furnished such scenes as were sufficient to make any one die with laughter. Thus the mornings passed without our thinking of them. At 2 or 3 o'clock we took some refreshment. Venture then went to his various engagements, where he supped, while I walked alone, meditating on his great merit, coveting and admiring his rare talents, and cursing my own unlucky stars that did not call me to so happy a life. How little did I then know of myself! Mine had been 1,000 times more delightful had I not been such a fool, or known better how to enjoy it. Madame de Warrens had taken no one with her but Anet. Merceret, the chambermaid, whom I have before mentioned, still remained in the house. Merceret was something older than myself, not pretty, but tolerably agreeable, good natured, free from malice, having no fault to my knowledge, but being a little refractory with her mistress. I often went to see her. She was an old acquaintance who recalled to my remembrance one more beloved, and this made her dear to me. She had several friends, and among others one Mademoiselle Giraud, a Genevese, who for the punishment of my sins took it in her head to have an inclination for me, always pressing Merceret, when she returned her visits, to bring me with her. As I liked Merceret, I felt no disinclination to accompany her. Besides, I met there with some young people whose company pleased me. For Mademoiselle Giraud, who offered every kind of enticement, nothing could increase the aversion I had for her. When she drew near me, with her dried black snout smeared with Spanish snuff, it was with the utmost difficulty that I could refrain from expressing my distaste; but being pleased with her visitors, I took patience. Among these were 2 girls, who, either to pay their court to Mademoiselle Giraud or myself, paid me every possible attention. I conceived this to be only friendship, but have since thought it depended only on myself to have discovered something more, though I did not even think of it at the time. There was another reason for my stupidity. Seamstresses, chambermaids, or milliners never tempted me. I sighed for ladies. Everyone has his peculiar taste. This has ever been mine, being in this particular of a different opinion from Horace. Yet it is not vanity of riches or rank that attracts me. It is a well preserved complexion, fine hands, elegance of ornaments, an air of delicacy and neatness throughout the whole person, more in taste, in the manner of expressing themselves, a finer or better made gown, a well turned ankle, small foot, ribbons, lace, and well dressed hair. I even prefer those who have less natural beauty, provided they are elegantly decorated. I freely confess this preference is very ridiculous, yet my heart gives in to it, spite of my understanding. Well, even this advantage presented itself, and it only depended on my own resolution to have seized the opportunity. How do I love, from time to time, to return to those moments of my youth, which were so charmingly delightful, so short, so scarce, and enjoyed at so cheap a rate! How fondly do I wish to dwell on them! Even yet the remembrance of these scenes warms my heart with a chaste rapture, which appears necessary to reanimate my drooping courage, and enable me to sustain the weariness of my latter days. The appearance of Aurora seemed so delightful one morning, that, putting on my clothes, I hastened into the country to see the rising of the sun. I enjoyed that pleasure in its utmost extent. It was 1 week after midsummer. The earth was covered with verdure and flowers. The nightingales, whose soft warblings were almost concluded, seemed to vie with each other, and in concert with birds of various kinds, to bid adieu to spring, and hail the approach of a beautiful summer's day, one of those lovely days that are no longer to be enjoyed at my age, and which have never been seen on the melancholy soil I now inhabit. I had rambled insensibly to a considerable distance from the town. The heat augmented. I was walking in the shade along a valley, by the side of a brook. I heard behind me the steps of horses, and the voice of some females, who, though they seemed embarrassed, did not laugh the less heartily on that account. I turn round, hear myself called by name, and approaching, find 2 young people of my acquaintance, Mademoiselle de G and Mademoiselle Galley, who, not being very excellent horsewomen, could not make their horses cross the rivulet. Mademoiselle de G was a young lady of Berne, very amiable, who, having been sent from that country for some youthful folly, had imitated Madame de Warrens, at whose house I had sometimes seen her, but not having, like her, a pension, she had been fortunate in this attachment to Mademoiselle Galley, who had prevailed on her mother to engage her young friend as a companion, till she could be otherwise provided for. Mademoiselle Galley was 1 year younger than her friend, handsomer, more delicate, more ingenious, and, to complete all, extremely well made. They loved each other tenderly, and the good disposition of both could not fail to render their union durable, if some lover did not derange it. They informed me they were going to Thun, an old castle belonging to Madame Galley, and implored my assistance to make their horses cross the stream, not being able to compass it themselves. I would have given each a cut or 2 with the whip, but they feared I might be kicked, and themselves thrown. I therefore had recourse to another expedient. I took hold of Mademoiselle Galley's horse and led him through the brook, the water reaching half way up my legs. The other followed without any difficulty. This done, I would have paid my compliments to the ladies and walked off like a great booby as I was, but after whispering to each other, Mademoiselle de G said: "No, no, you must not think to escape thus. You have got wet in our service, and we ought in conscience to take care and dry you. If you please, you must go with us, you are now our prisoner." My heart began to beat. I looked at Mademoiselle Galley. "Yes, yes," said she, laughing at my fearful look. "Our prisoner of war. Come, get up behind her, we shall have a good account of you." "But, mademoiselle," continued I have not the honor to be acquainted with your mother. What will she say on my arrival?" "Her mother," replied Mademoiselle de G , "is not at Toune, we are alone. We shall return at night, and you shall come back with us." The stroke of electricity has not a more instantaneous effect than these words produced on me. Leaping behind Mademoiselle de G , I trembled with joy, and when it became necessary to clasp her in order to hold myself on, my heart beat so violently that she perceived it, and told me hers beat also, from a fear of falling. In my present posture, I might naturally have considered this an invitation to satisfy myself of the truth of her assertion, yet I did not dare, and during the whole way my arm served as a girdle, a very close one, I must confess, without being a moment displaced. Some women that may read this would be for giving me a box on the ear, and truly I deserved it. The gaiety of the journey and the chat of these girls so enlivened me, that during the whole time we passed together we never ceased talking a moment. They had set me so thoroughly at ease, that my tongue spoke as fast as my eyes, though not exactly the same things. Some minutes, indeed, when I was left alone with either, the conversation became a little embarrassed, but neither of them was absent long enough to allow time for explaining the cause. End of section 10. Recording by Martin Geeson in Hazelmere, Surrey.